This ad is terrible.
If he was willing to lie to you about that to earn a buck, what's he going to do as a senator?
Welcome to Political Experts React, where we break down political ads in media, explain what the people behind them are trying to accomplish, and decide whether or not they did a good job. I'm Dan Pfeiffer, former communications director for Barack Obama, and joining me today is civil rights lawyer and co-founder of MeidasTouch, Ben Meiselas. Ben, welcome to Political Experts React. We are so excited to have you in the MeidasTouch franchise, empire, whatever you say, here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Dan. I'm excited to be here. I've been a big fan of the show for a long time.
We need more people in the progressive movement out making content, out trying to push our messaging, and that's why I've always been a big fan of what you guys are doing. Let's start with an ad that your team at MeidasTouch put together. It's called Wizard of Lies.
We'd like you to keep your promise to us, if you please, sir.
And now I've got the #1 miracle in a bottle to burn your fat. It is the new Miracle Berry. Lightning in a bottle. The miracle of the year. It's raspberry keto, sea buckthorn, alpha cyclodextrin, green coffee bean extract, yacon syrup, red palm oil, Garcinia cambogia. It's a miracle flower. This miracle pill, brand new miracle.
Do you believe that there's a miracle pill out there?
There's not a pill that's going to help you long-term lose weight and live the best life without diet and exercise.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
He's completely changed his positions on just about every issue.
At this point, Bill Cosby is a more credible TV doctor.
I know you know how much power you have. You are very powerful.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Physicians say Dr. Oz is a quack and a charlatan.
The only thing that people like Dr. Oz care about is themselves.
You're a very bad man.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
I mean, just devastating. What was your strategy behind this? Who were you targeting? How's the reception been to this video?
The reception has been great. It's garnered over 4.1 million views on digital, and it's been replayed over and over again by MSNBC and other TV commentators. This is who Dr. Oz is. He's someone who has lied his entire career. Not only do you go through each one of the lies that he does, but then when he speaks in front of the congressional audience, his tune completely changes, which is something that we see over and over again with a lot of people who espouse this MAGA extremism, which is why they want to destroy our judiciary and destroy our institutions, because when they have to sign an under oath declaration or testify, they all of a sudden invoke their Fifth Amendment rights or run from the hills or dismiss their case. And then obviously we wanted to inject humor into it as well. And so framing this about the Wizard of Oz and Dr. Oz and playing off that to give it that sense of humor so that you could also very gently and delicately, kind of hide the medicine of the real serious point that we're trying to make here. But not just focusing on the fact that he is a charlatan and lies, the type of things that he lies about. And think about it. If he was willing to lie to you about that to earn a buck, what's he going to do as a senator? How is he going to sell you out?
Over at MeidasTouch, you guys spend a lot of time thinking about how to make content go viral. What's your process for that? Is there a secret sauce? Is it trial and error?
It needs to tell a story, and that story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you have to tell it in a 2-minute period to a 5-minute period. And I think a lot of that storytelling had previously been lacking on progressive democratic ad making, and they just focused on the generic type of ad. This is who I am, here's what I believe, vote for me. And I think voters put up their guard to that. And so here we basically, in that 2 to 3 minutes, told the Wizard of Oz story, using Dr. Oz with humor, and had the beginning, middle, and end. For the content to go viral, it has to be good. The edits have to be good. It has to make sense. But really, it's that storytelling that takes the viewer on this arc, and they leave with the conclusion, bam, this guy's a bad guy. The tone has to be there. And then what's that message that we leave people with? So they leave feeling like, got it.
In my mind, this ad is the sweet spot where it has all the elements of virality. It gets people who already feel a certain way about Dr. Oz or John Fetterman to share that content, to give it the engagement the algorithms need to show it to more people. But the message in it is actually designed not to make people who already hate Dr. Oz feel better about themselves, but to make people who may not know anything about Dr. Oz learn something that would be a very damaging piece of information. And if you can get an effective persuasion message embedded in a piece of viral content, like that is a sweet spot. I thought that you guys nailed it with this one. All right, the next ad we're going to watch is from another group who prides themselves on trying to make things go viral, the Lincoln Project.
Pennsylvania's Jewish community faces a rising tide of anti-Semitism. An alt-right gunman took 11 Jewish lives in an unimaginable slaughter. The gunman was radicalized on Gab, a social media site where Nazis, anti-Semites, and racists spread hate and terror against Jews. So what did Doug Mastriano do? Joined Gab, hired them, paid Gab's CEO for advice, bought Gab ads and followers. Mastriano knows what he's paying for, knows exactly what Gab's audience is. They're not just Nazis, Klansmen, racists, and crazies. They're his base. Pennsylvania has proudly protected the religious liberty of every faith and creed since our founding. Now it's up to us to protect Pennsylvania from Doug Mastriano.
The Lincoln Project paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
What do you think about this ad? Do you think it's effective?
I do. I think it targets a smaller population than the Wizard of Lies, right? I think it sends a powerful and needed message to the Jewish community, in Pennsylvania as well, and potential Jewish voters who may be leaning to vote Republican for whatever reason. It's a complicated story that's being woven there about Gab, what it is, and I can view the average voter not really recognizing that Mastriano supports a very hateful person, but what's this Gab thing? It's a little bit confusing, in the middle of it. But overall, I think the point is clear, and I think there's a lot of things to go after Doug Mastriano for as well. There's a wealth of it, and this is one of them.
Unlike, I think, a lot of other Lincoln Project ads, this one is not sort of swerving out of its lane for virality. They play it pretty straight here. One of the goals here in all of these races, but particularly in this race in Pennsylvania, is to make this a referendum about Republican extremism. Doug Mastriano is sort of the avatar for that Republican extremism. He's done the least to hide it. He's the least apologetic about it. I think I have the same critique that you do, which is for a lot of people, it's a little, what is Gab? There's an anti-Semitic website, and how would you buy followers for it? And then the other thing that's sort of, it's a little inside baseball. Like when you use the term, they're his base, that's not something that means anything to the average person. The one thing that I do think is good, and I think more ads should do, is the way it ends with, it's up to us to stop them. Like you want to empower the voters. You want to make them think that they have agency to be the ones who fight back here. And we generally resist giving letter grades, but this is like in the zone of B+ sort of effort here. Is that kind of my take on it?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think what you said there is so important too, that sometimes people think of, is there going to be this ad that's just the knockout punch? I never think of any ads like that. I always view that every single day we have to own the narrative in some way. And each day you have like an arrow that you can shoot out. And it's just a constant barrage of information that gets out there. And then letting the voter know. You just have to be relentless with the info. I just know we got to own the content lane, and we got to keep flooding the zone with our truth to prevent the other side from spreading disinfo like they would do. And you just got to wash it out.
All right, people, we are less than 1 month away from the election. That means a couple things. First, get over to Vote Save America, figure out how you can help, where you can vote, and make sure your voice is heard. That's not the only voting you can do. There's a much, much less important way you can vote, and that is by smashing the subscribe button. We only have a few more episodes left. How many subscriptions we get between now and the election will determine the fate of this show. So make your voice heard in important ways by going to Vote Save America and getting involved in this elections, and make your voice heard in the least important way possible, smashing the subscribe button on the Pod Save America YouTube channel. The last ad we're going to watch is from Senator Marco Rubio in Florida.
The radical left will destroy America if we don't stop them. They indoctrinate children and try to turn boys into girls. They allow illegal aliens and drugs to flood America. And if you speak out, they ban you on social media, and they call you a racist. Congresswoman Val Demings, she supports all of this. She votes with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. I'm Marco Rubio, and I approve this message because I was raised by people who lost their country. I'm not gonna let us lose ours.
I feel like I have to take a deep breath after that ad, but what did you think about it?
I mean, it looks like a parody. So to me, when I look at that ad, I think to myself, how do I immediately respond to that ad and kind of pick it apart in a way that really exposes who Marco Rubio is? So when he uses the terms like extremism and radical, Democrats, for whatever reason, for a long time were afraid and had not been labeling right-wing as radical extremists and using that language. And so we were taking hits with that label when it was like, these people are the most extreme people in the world. They're not conservative. They support insurrection. They're literally cheer on pandemics. They want to lock up Dr. Fauci. They want 18-year-olds to run around with AR-15s. And you're like, these are not conservative people. So he looks ridiculous. I think it's poorly done, but I don't think we can just ignore it and just say, ha ha ha. And it's important that we look at it seriously and then fire back right away and go, who's Marco Rubio? He's the most radical extremist that there is. He doesn't even vote for anything.
I do have to say we included this ad in this episode because Marco Rubio is running for re-election, and it would be a huge blind spot for us to do an entire election where we don't dunk on Marco Rubio at least once, because this ad is fucking terrible. It's a piece of shit. Marco Rubio is a piece of shit. It is just absolutely terrible. Like, there was a moment in time after he won election in 2010 where he's on the cover of Time magazine as the great hope of the Republican Party, seen as his incredible messenger. The Republican Obama was how people described him, which is incredibly offensive to Barack Obama. But he is truly one of the worst, least sincere, least compelling messengers in all of American politics. And the only people who believe that Marco Rubio has a shred of political talent left are people who work for Marco Rubio. I don't think Marco Rubio believes it because he is half-assing that ad. It's also important, I think, to stipulate this ad is complete and utter bullshit. Val Demings is not some radical extremist. She is a former police chief whose views are well within the mainstream of American political thought. That is not how or why Val Demings may win this race, but it's just worth dwelling for a moment on the fact of just how bad and insincere and cynical Marco Rubio is. I feel better. That was cathartic. It was not constructive, but it was cathartic.
And that's why, though, what you do, what we do, what other groups do too now is call that out like immediately for what it is and don't let that messaging linger. One of the things we did at MeidasTouch is we just created an ad called Where is Marco? We basically just showed that Marco Rubio completely abandoned his constituents. He abandoned the voters of Florida. He barely votes. Here's someone who's an absentee senator. He doesn't even show up to vote for issues that matter.
So we can all agree Marco Rubio sucks. Ben, thank you so much for joining us here on Political Experts Who Act. Everyone, check out MeidasTouch. Subscribe to their YouTube channel. Follow their content. They're doing really great stuff out there.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching these ads and videos with us. If you have anything you'd like us to break down, please let us know in the comments. See you all next time.